So, news of the day, and there will be news after this video is done because that's always the way this works. This is my second take because I realized as I finished the first take that the power rankings board was in clear view and you could see where teams were. And I was like, oh, I don't need that argument on a Tuesday. So, New Jersey's number one. What? Well, of course, because they've beaten the Capitals, they've beaten the Lightning, so they're the best team in the league right now. I've been thinking about doing a little comedy type video, but I don't know. Because there's always people going, yeah, I think he's serious in this. I know he's just joking around, but I think he's actually pretty serious in this, guys. So yeah, not a headache I need today. On the trade front, and let's be honest, we're getting into the part of the year where things are going to get ridiculous, right? We're going to hear speculation about players that aren't getting traded. We're going to see crazy, wild, speculative stuff on websites that want you to click on them because they're pretty darn sure Ovechkin's getting traded at the deadline. And it's going to be like a headline like, could Ovechkin be traded? And you click on it and they go, no, probably not. But Alec Martinez is on the market, and that's kind of like the same thing. So according to Pierre LeBrun, Alec Martinez is on the market. What makes him an intriguing prospect for trade is that he is signed through next year. He's signed through 2021. And, of course, LA did this last year with Jake Muzzin, and it worked out pretty well. The return they got on Jake Muzzin was pretty solid. So they may be looking to do the same thing with Martinez, and so he's officially available. And he may very well be a headliner of trade deadline day. I don't anticipate trade deadline day to have a lot of big names in it. So by all means, come on and watch the live stream we do every trade deadline. It'll be fun. But don't expect a big name to get moved. Don't expect, like, the Penguins, with the record they've had without Sidney Crosby, decided now is a good time to part ways with their captain. But again, there'll be blog posts and websites. Come watch it. Come over here. Look. We got all this stuff. We're pretty sure these big names are going. No. And I know people watching this are going to be like, oh, he's talking about that site. No, there's a lot of them. There's a ton of them. So I do my best not to get involved in that. So I'm gonna say straight out, the Denver, I think it's Denver Post reporter didn't do himself any favors in speculating that maybe the Colorado Avalanche, who clearly their problem is goaltending according to him, it's a lot more complicated than that, but okay, their glaring issue is goaltending according to him. Francois sheds a tear, and Grubauer's been okay, and he suggests that in order to resolve this, that they should try to get Henrik Lundqvist, whose overall numbers are right around the same as Grubauer's and Francois's, and he's a lot older. And then you have two. I don't understand the logic of this. The problem is this, and the reason I'm reporting it is this. So let's just say I worked for the province here, and I'm going, you know what, the Vancouver Canucks, what could they use? You know what, they could use a defenseman. The Canucks should go after. Okay, it has to be somebody who's not on the market. The Canucks should go after Sandin from Toronto. So Sandin we'll talk about in a minute. They should go from Sandin in Toronto. They should be willing to make a big deal. Toronto, they're going to need some help. Just as an example. Now, it's not going to happen. Obviously, Toronto wouldn't trade him, right? But the name's out there. And somebody goes, hey, this reporter's report. Hey. So then all of a sudden, every armchair GM in the world, and I admit I've been an armchair GM on some level before. I've always argued with people on the internet where they go, we should just go get this guy. How? And I've seen that, and hockey fans of every hockey team do this. I don't understand. This GM sucks. I don't understand why you didn't just go get that guy. Show your work. I used to always say, show your work. Okay, all right, tell me how they get that guy and show your work. And then it was always Mason, Raymond, Ballard, and a first. And I'm like, you're a moron. It's not going to work. So, and there's Canuck fans going, oh, Raymond Ballard in the first. Yep, that was the trade. Every trade, Raymond Ballard in the first. It's like, look, if we don't want Ballard and Raymond, it's not a secret then that other teams probably aren't going to want to pick him up either. And that first would have been a really late first rounder because at the time the Canucks were pretty darn good. But this is that silly season, and as the years have gone by, we've really picked up on it as these trade things go viral. Be very careful of it, because it can lead to a lot of excitement that then on trade deadline day you go, that's it? All they got for Vanek was bodies? Watch. Just be careful not to get your hopes up when they're trading Thomas Vanek. Vanek's not in the league this year? That's probably for the best. just get bodies for him anyways. So yeah, I admit sometimes that I think, all right, here comes it's gonna be a big deal, and then a deal goes down, and I'm like, seriously, nuts. Yeah. So watch for silly season, and I don't think Colorado needs a goalie. I think they need to ride Francouz. I think Francouz is the better goaltender. I know they want to get Grubauer going. They've played him in games they probably shouldn't have because they want to get Grubauer going. He's not, so I would think Francouz is the guy. Crosby's back tonight. How's that for a segue? Non-segue. Crosby's back tonight for Pittsburgh. I mentioned this in the preview this morning. I'm mentioning it here. And it's kind of a big deal. Crosby being back is kind of a big deal. I'm not sure if people have heard of Crosby outside of Pittsburgh. He's a pretty good player, though. And so I anticipate he will help Pittsburgh. This means that McCann, who's played very well in his absence, moves to the wing, his wing. And so McCann could very well score some goals while he's healthy, which all Penguins fans are going to hope is for the rest of the year. And on the injury front, Yoel Armia is close to a return for Montreal. There isn't a date given yet, but he took part in his first full practice with the team, so he's close. And so the Habs, who've been short Drouin, Armia, and Gallagher, which is a huge part of their attack, they will get Armia back, which will help. And with all those players, I don't know if Montreal is a playoff team, but I know they'd be better off than they've been over the last, say, couple of months. All-Star game. So this is almost going to become a bingo game. If you had Paul Mary as the next one to be off the All-Star game, go ahead and mark him off. He's out. Nico Heischer's in. He's got a left foot injury, apparently, that he wants to rest during the All-Star break. These guys want to rest during the All-Star break. It makes total sense to me. It's a week and a half off for most of these guys. The actual bye week is scheduled around the All-Star break, which is great. And at the same time, it makes it easier than ever for guys to skip. Because again, and I've mentioned this before, it means, well, you have to not play the game before or after. Oh, so I get a longer vacation. Thanks. So, yeah. Paul Mary has to miss the game before or after. He didn't travel with the team today anyways, so I have very little doubt that Paul Mary's actually hurt. But we're seeing a lot of guys drop out of this. Liljegren's been called up by Toronto, but he will not be in the lineup tonight. Instead, the three pairings that are being reported are Marincin and Barrie. Marincin, of course, signed an extension for 1 year recently. I didn't do a video on that one, but I thought it was interesting because Martin Marincin, as recently as last year, I would see a lot of Leaf fans saying, I can't wait till we get rid of this guy. And now, he's signed through next year. Dermott and Hall, second pairing, and Sandin and Ceci are third pairing. This team needs defense. If you're going to be without Muzzin and Riley, they need defensemen. And I'm not sure that there's... I'm not sure how you make this work. The market for defense right now is kind of thin. For what they need, it's kind of thin. So I'm surprised Liljegren isn't going to be in the lineup right away. I would think he gets in the lineup for the next game because he's got that top-end potential that they need. They really need that in the lineup right now. And it would kind of give them a vision of what their future is going to look like on the blue line with Liljegren and Sandin. Tricky. It'll be a very tricky year for the Toronto Maple Leafs this year because they kind of needed to win it this year. And now with Riley and Muzzin both out, the question becomes, are they a playoff team without them? Just gets worse. And now to the reason why I'm wearing a Quebec Nordiques jersey, because I'm sure there's people who are like, why is he wearing Nordiques for News of the Day? Well, because Quebec City has the Quebec International Pee Wee Hockey Tournament. And this is the 61st, I believe it said 61st time they've had it. And for guests, boy, they went really odd with this one. So I thought, I kind of got to throw this in News of the Day because it's weird. Eric Lindros is going to be there. The guy who was drafted by the Quebec Nordiques, didn't put the jersey on and just kind of sat there looking miserable at the draft. Chris Nyland, famously of the Montreal Canadiens, who beat up Quebec Nordiques for a living for a while. He was quite good at beating up people and beating up Nordiques especially. And, of course, there was the whole brawl thing that happened during the 80s between Quebec and Montreal. And if you're saying which one, yeah, that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Kerry Fraser, former referee who in 1987 called a no-goal on a goal by Alain Cote of the Quebec Nordiques. And the Habs scored shortly thereafter and then won that series in 6. So Kerry Fraser was a reviled referee in Quebec City. It's interesting to go in this direction, and these guys are going to have an autograph signing. I'm not thinking anybody my age and older who were Quebec Nordiques fans would be clamoring for the signature of Lindros. Yeah, so it's an odd way to go about it. It'd be like having a tournament in Vancouver and our headliner's Brad Marchand. Really, you're gonna go with Marchand, are you? Because Lindros was really hated by Quebec and its fans, and yet at the same time, when we look back on that story, it wasn't Lindros rejecting the city of Quebec City. Yeah, the city of Quebec City. It just sounds weird to say it. It was Lindros not liking the direction of both the team and the management there. He was not a big fan of the management in Quebec. And as much as fans hated him, they wouldn't be a fan of the Quebec City management for much longer either because they'd moved the team to Denver. So yeah, this should be interesting. There's 20 countries that are playing in this tournament, including Croatia and South Korea for the first time. So for those of us who've been waiting for hockey to break through in other countries, this is good. Croatia, especially, to me, sounds like that's a natural place that should. It sounds like a hockey country. So yeah, and South Korea, yeah, make it work, make it happen. If hockey could make inroads in Korea, Asia, through China and Japan, as I think it definitely can, you would be attracting a lot of interest to hockey and a lot of new players. And the way I see it is that for the kids from Croatia and South Korea, they might get absolutely bombed out of this tournament by countries like Canada, Russia, and wherever else. But at the same time, they take that experience home with them, and it can be a really important event for kids like that. And this is why I've always argued that for the World Cup, this silly tournament that the NHL has, and it is silly because it's just NHLers. If it's going to be a World Cup, it can't just be NHLers. It's not like when you have the World Cup of soccer, they just go, all right, it's the World Cup of soccer, but it's just going to be players from the top 8 countries that are eligible to even be in it. That'd be just why. So I really think, and I understand, like, people would be like, well, if you have a team of Croatian men at a World Cup, they'll get killed. They will. They'll also have a chance to go out on the ice with really good players and see that, feel that crowd at a big arena, and get an experience they probably can't get at home. That experience can help them, and it can really help grow the game. And not only that, but then people in countries that wouldn't have any interest in a World Cup of hockey might go, hey, I kind of want to see what's going on because there's players from our country playing there. I really think the World Cup is a good idea, but I think you have to make it a World Cup or else it's not. You can't just slap World Cup on something and go, there you go, we made this new prestigious tournament. There's nothing prestigious about it when it's just National Hockey League players. It has to be open to guys from the KHL. It has to be open to guys from all the European leagues, and you have to play into it. You have to win your way into it in order to make it an actual legitimate World Cup tournament. Otherwise, it's just the NHL tournament. And the term NHL tournament is not going to attract a lot of interest, but that's what the NHL leans towards. It's the NHL tournament, and I think it's too bad. I think they miss out because I think part of what always interested me about the World Championships when I was a little kid was that you could see Germany there. Well, it was West Germany at the time, but you could see West Germany there. And you could see Czechoslovakia when they were one country. Czechoslovakia go through and win a gold medal. You go, oh, that's interesting. And I haven't heard of any of these players before. So I think you missed that with the World Cup the way that they had it the last time. So hopefully at some point in time, we see a situation where at a men's level, professional tournament, we can see countries and go, hey, this is really fun. Just think about a World Cup tournament, an NHL World Cup tournament where the NHL's hosting it and Australia's at it. So you've got an Australian team. They had the Aussies up here playing in Edmonton. They had an Australian team come up. The thing that made me laugh was watching the news last night where the Australian players talking about how they were preparing for the cold in Edmonton by jumping into a freezer that was minus 20. And he said when they stepped off the plane, he's like, oh, no, because it was minus 39 their first day. And they're like, yeah, this is much colder than the freezer. And he said his feet almost froze. And I thought, yeah, yeah, you can't get ready for the cold. It's really, really cold. And then somebody will be standing there while their nose is falling out going, but it's a dry cold. Yeah, Still freezes your nose off. All right, there you go. If you want to go to this tournament, you're in the Quebec City area. February 12th to 23rd at Videotron Center, which is where the Quebec Nordiques would play if they were currently in the NHL, and maybe someday it'll happen again. And also, games will be played at Pavillon de la Jeunesse. So, there you go. And I apologize for my English accent over it. It just sounds weird. I've seen it with reporters where everything in a report will be in English, and then some Spanish word will jump in, and they'll say it with a Spanish accent. And you're like, that sounds really weird. And same with French reporting. In the middle of an English report where all of a sudden a French name or a French word will come up and they pronounce it in the French accent. It just sounds strange. I get it. It's respectful. It's fine. But Pavillon de la Jeunesse is as close as I'm going to get right now. So, there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Fun little news of the day video. We'll see, what happens with this and if any other newsworthy stuff comes out of that. But there's always hockey stuff coming on. I know. People will always say, Shannon's just the NHL guy. He's not the hockey guy. Yeah, I will report on stuff that's outside the NHL sphere. It's a matter of time, and it's a matter of just, not stretching myself too thin. So there you go. The Quebec International PB Hockey Tournament. And guests of a very odd nature, but it should be a lot of fun. So it's a shame I'm not closer, but I may very well end up in Quebec at some point or somewhere, because Rammstein's announced a North American tour, likely for 2021 or late 2020. So I'm going. It's just a matter of where I'm going. And they're not going to be in Vancouver or anywhere near here. So, and we're getting on a plane. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I will talk to you again soon.